Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host, Jivraj, and today I have with me one of the most legendary entrepreneurs of our time. Join me in welcoming the co founder and CEO of PolicyBazaar, Mr. Yashish Dahiya. Thank you so much, Yashish, for joining me. This means absolutely a lot to me to be hosting you today.
Thank you, Jivraj. Thank you so much.
Great to hear that. And as we get started, I must acknowledge that when I was going through the research leading up to this episode, I came across such wonderful stories of your time that it made me believe a lot in perseverance and confidence. And that's where I want to start because your story of how you got into sports, how you got into the IIT and the IIM, and then continued excelling across roles is one that really inspires. So if you can take us through your journey briefly with the emphasis on, what confidence and perseverance has meant for you, I think that would be a super conversation starter.
Thank you. I think that's a very difficult one because I think as a child, I wasn't a super confident child. I was curious. I always wanted to know what's happening, etc. But I wasn't. I think for boys, there's a lesson here. I don't know about the girls' side, but I think for the boys, everybody needs an identity in school or college. Otherwise, you don't get recognized much within school or college. And for me, that identity came in the form of running. Because I think I was about 8 years old when I realized there was a school cross country happening. And I just decided to participate in it. And I think I came sixth in the entire school. This was in Meerut, in St. Mary's Academy. And I obviously came first in my class and my age group. And suddenly I became very popular from this shy kid whom nobody really knew. Because I was living in Meerut, and Meerut, I was little young for my class. And we had this amazing environment of, I don't know if I should even say it, but there was a lot of Muslim people and a lot of Jat people in my class, and they used to always have some fight going on between themselves. And I did not even know I was a Jat at that time. So I was this little kid who was sort of, lost in the whole situation. And suddenly I became this runner, and everybody started recognizing me. And I think ever since I've never really looked back, and running has kind of been my identity. Even though today, both swimming and cycling, I'm better than at my running. But that became my identity. And if you ask anybody, they will always say, okay, Yashish, the runner. And that kind of got me to improve in a lot of other things. Because, once you have that confidence, you start doing well in other things. So I think I would say that, age 8 was probably my lowest point. Because at that time, I did not have running. And once I found running, it helped me kind of, tag on to other things one by one. So, yeah.
Got it. No, I think that's interesting, the point about identity and what that does to confidence and how you can build on top of it. But building from there, I think the PolicyBazaar journey and what you've gone through personally, I think you graduated in 1996 from IIM, then in 2001 you joined Bain, and then in 2008 you you start PolicyBazaar, which are all important landmarks because they were the downturns of those times. And you've often said this, right, that the party always ends. Talk to us about what it means to weather these business cycles, right? As youngsters who are building the companies of tomorrow, we probably only seen an upcycle currently, but you have the advantage of having gone through those times. Maybe speak to us about what these business cycles do to somebody.
So, Jivraj, I have also changed in the last, like one of the interesting things is in life is you have to change. You have to also be able to change your thought process. And yes, I had this big belief that, a lot of things in India get overheated, get overvalued, etc. And, there would be a day when you have to kind of stand on your own feet and, build a solid business. And, you can't just keep living off the aura of, growing India. But then I've started to see things in a slightly different light in the last few months. And I think the light I'm able to see now is India is the biggest transformation opportunity in the world. Such a transformation opportunity, such a growth opportunity does not exist. Let me explain why I say that. See, in the next 20 years, the Indian GDP is going to probably go about 5x. In very simple terms, that means roughly 8 to 10% of the world's GDP will be added to India from where it is today. So that means on a global scale, 10% of the globe's GDP is going to be created here.
Right.
Created from almost scratch, right? And this is not going to happen anywhere else in the world. And the total amount of investment that's gone into this whole area is below $100 billion so far. It's less than $100 billion. So it's not a lot of money. So seeing it from that vantage point, I actually think there's going to be more and more capital in the next 20 years available. And yes, people will make mistakes. And some people will take advantage of the situation. And I was just, as you were, before I started, I was just reading an article which said, don't worry about VC returns. Just get an early exit for yourself, not for the VC, for yourself, right? So I think a lot of that mentality will be there also. But that's part and parcel of everything. It's like this, it's the same thing as like, the crypto story, right? That Web 3.0 is going to be there. Yes, there are going to be a lot of people in that who are just in it for the money. And there are a lot of people who want to transform the world. So I think the transformation is also happening. I think somewhere my mind was getting sidetracked by the opportunists. I think I have to stop thinking about that side as an individual, and I have to start focusing on, there is a real transformation opportunity here, and yes, it's okay. And these are calls the investors are taking, knowing very well that half their money or maybe 70% of their money is going to get wasted.
Right.
But the 30% that does work will build some very strong institutions. And I think, so the other thing I would say is, if our economy is going to grow 5x, many of the existing companies that lead our economy don't have the ability to grow 5x.
Right.
They probably have the ability to grow only 2x. Mm-hmm. So 60% of the economy will somewhere be new age companies. There's a likelihood that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So the transformation is very real. Some very large organizations are going to get created out here. And some very sincere folk who want to build those and who have deep aspirations to build those are going to build them, and the capital will be available for them. And yes, on the sidelines, some will get wasted and some opportunists will take advantage of the situation. That happens every time.
Got it.
So if you notice, that's a huge change in my own thinking, right?
Yeah. Because I've observed your pattern of thinking, and it's great, how it's evolved. And I think that reinforces the belief in the new India. But of course, while the acceptance is there that there will always be some kind of bad actors, but those are not representative of the entire population. So I think that's what I'm taking away. But it's interesting. I think I'd love to now go back down a bit, a memory lane, and understand from you as to the inflection point that led to starting our PolicyBazaar. Because as you yourself claimed in the past, there were a couple of, competitors at the time. You were not the first mover in this space, but still you were able to establish a presence for yourself. In the first 3 years, despite a couple of pivots, regulatory changes, whatnot, you still weathered the storm and, built a sustainable large business. Talk to us about what was the inflection point that led to the start of all of this, and what were the initial days of PolicyBazaar like?
See, I think there was a big opportunity that was very clear to me. And that was that the middle class in India had a serious issue with handling situations of death, disease, or disability. And what that meant was, if somebody in the middle class who is an earning person expires or falls sick or gets disabled, how exactly what prevents that family from falling down from the middle class? And middle class in India is it may seem like a very noble thing in the West, but in India, it's somebody has achieved the middle class. They have come from the villages and they have achieved middle class. They don't want to go back. They probably still have their home in the village, but they don't want to go back. It can be anybody. It can be a person doing a small job in a tech company. It could be a person who's driving a car. It can be anybody. It can be a person working in a factory. But all these people, 95% of them have come from non-middle class into middle class, and our first generation middle class, if you would. And I think for these people, the biggest fear is losing that middle class. Because what does middle class mean? It means you can send your children to proper schools. It means you can, basically eat normal food, live in a home by yourself as a nuclear family. I think all of these are privileges of middle class, which disappear the moment you have a financial disaster like a death, disease, or disability. So it's a very, very serious issue, and one that cannot just be solved out of the blue, just like that. And insurance is perhaps the only solution that can be offered in a meaningful time frame in the next 20, 25 years. So I saw that opportunity, and I wanted to make sure that we educated people about this, because it's a difficult concept. People don't want to talk about death, disease, or disability, but it's a very, very real problem. It's almost, when I explain our business to people, they are almost like, oh my God, this is what governments do. People talk about impact businesses. Your entire business is impacted, right? You're not selling jeans or t-shirts or computers or iPhones or whatever, right? You're basically doing a very, very noble thing. So I think it was a combination of need, mission, and someone like me who needs so much clarity to do anything would only do a business like this. That's also real. Like I could not have gone there and set up a shop to sell jeans or anything. That's not me. I would, if that was the case, I would keep working in a job. So someone like me needed an opportunity so big. And what I realized down the road was a lot of people were of the opportunist type. So what that implies is, what does opportunist mean? Opportunist is a good thing. People have to be opportunist. I'm not an opportunist. And so I somewhere look down upon opportunists, right? Not that it's necessarily wrong, but what that means is you start focusing on the money aspect, on your own return a little more than your mission or your purpose. And I think that eventually defeats you. The reason it defeats you is because ups and downs come in life. And when you have the down times, you don't have the ability. You have nothing to support you. It's like not having. How do I say this? It's like not having religion. I'm mostly atheist, but I'm just saying. Yeah. If you don't have religion in the down times, you don't have anything to latch on to. And one cannot say that one will never have a downtime. And so that's what like in my opinion, that's what a passion, a vision is like. And so I guess the lack of it destroys you.
Interesting. No, I think that's very impactful and a lot of food for thought for everyone listening, because it goes back to the original motivation of starting companies. Because if you're doing it for materialistic reasons, you can't weather the storms, as you mentioned, and so you need something more fundamental, like meaning, like purpose, like value, that can actually stand the test of time. So loved hearing that, Yashish. But I think what's also super interesting about PolicyBazaar, and something that you maintained over time, is that you never built PolicyBazaar with a lot of troughs and highs, right? It's been a constant delivering of performance week on week, quarter on quarter, right? You've almost also called it boring progress. And Shane Parrish has this quote which says, boring progress yields to exceptional results. Talk to us about what it means to build a company with constant performance and a focus on the higher goal. What are the fundamentals that actually even lead to the kind of success that PolicyBazaar has seen, and over decades, not just over a couple of years, right? So I think we'd love to hear that.
So see, your goal has to be very clear. At least let's not say it has to be. For me, the goal has always been very clear. What is the goal? A lot of educated customers out there in a growing market like India, where people understand the need for insurance, And the smartest way for them to buy insurance is to come, research it, understand it fully, and then purchase it. And for us as PolicyBazaar to have the ability to best service the issuance process and even the claims process for these customers, and to give them confidence, if you buy from PolicyBazaar, your issuance will be smooth, your claims will be smooth. That's the eventual target. There is no other big target. And I think as you head towards that target, you have to just make sure you're progressing every day. So we have for the last, now we are 14-year-old company. For the last 14 years, every day, 3 reports come, one at 2 o'clock, one at 5 o'clock, one at 8 o'clock, which tracks our progress along these metrics. The metrics are very straightforward. How much sales are you doing? You know, what percentage of customers are coming to you without your marketing cost? What percentage of your customers are you able to help in the issuance process? How is your issuance turnaround time reducing? How many people are coming to do first notification of claim to you rather than going to the company or the garage or the hospital? How many are telling you? And that number has to keep inching up every time. And I guess I have no problem with a huge amount of flexibility and freedom, but I get very nervous if a manager stops reporting on those metrics on a regular basis. Because if you don't report on those metrics, then you're essentially, and it's okay. Some days it'll be bad, some days it'll be good. That's fine. But I guess the accountability should not go away.
Got it. So I think clarity of goal and having accountability is my cue from that one. But going forward, one of the more, again, startling things about how you've built PolicyBazaar is the emphasis on people from day one, right? And I think team building and culture has been a huge point of reference for you. If you had to give us, quick traits as to what have you done right when it comes to team building, because the attrition rate for PolicyBazaar is extremely low, and a bunch of other things as to how your leadership style has followed is just phenomenal. So if you can talk to us about what leadership means for you and what team building entails, I think that would be really helpful, Yashish.
See, Yuvraj, I genuinely don't do things to be a leader or anything of that sort. I have always been myself, right? And I'm saying that's since I was a child. I will never be unfair to anybody. I will never encroach on their territory. I will always give them freedom. I like being free, and I like others to, I assume that others are also like me. They also don't want somebody constantly breathing down their neck, right? I don't like it at all. If somebody asks me something 3 times, I find it irritating, right? Yeah. So I think we are all the same. So it's just, that's how I am, right? And I think I'll give you some examples. Once a person joined me and they asked me, what is my career going to look like? Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, you're asking me what your career is going to look like. I don't even know what my career is going to look like. So how can I give you that answer? Mm-hmm. And that person is still with us. It's been about 11, 12 years. And they say, I found that the most honest answer. He says there was no, acting big or anything of that sort. It was just very straightforward, honest. You're just one-to-one. You're not junior to me. I'm not senior to you. It's just we are doing something. We both have our jobs. You do yours. I'm doing mine. And let's not worry too much about all these things like career and all that stuff. Because eventually, if we are able, if our purpose is clear, 2 things, right? If our purpose is clear, we will keep growing. If our purpose is clear and we have the right energy and the right attitude, we will keep growing. And so there'll be enough for everybody. Then the second part is, are we fair? Am I going to take more of your share than you deserve? So if you look at PolicyBazaar, we are one of the, you always see these things, founders equity, management equity, and you see founders having 90-95% of the equity of the whole thing. PolicyBazaar, the management has more than the founders. And what you see is, that means hundreds of people having tens of or hundreds of crores.
Yeah.
Right? That it can always be avoided. It can be ignored. You can walk along and say, hey, it's okay. We will handle it one day. You can waste people's time. We are not like that. We are very straightforward. We are, and we are not overly, crazy also. So we don't give crazy exorbitant salaries or exorbitant ESOPs or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
It is just people join, they grow the company, and in that growth, they also grow. And eventually, after 4-5 years, when they look back, I ask them only one question. When people complete 5 years with PolicyBazaar, I ask them only one question. When you joined PolicyBazaar, did you think you would achieve this, or did you think something else? And in almost 100%, not almost, all cases, the answer is we've achieved more than we ever thought we would. Right? And I think that's what's important. As long as otherwise people will always be unhappy. They will always say that I deserve more. That is obvious. Even I deserve more. That's okay. All of us have that. And I think, but the important part is people feeling that the company has been fair to them. And I think that does happen.
Awesome. No, I think that's super.
Like, see, this year for most people earning a little more than a certain amount, we are not doing any increments.
Mm-hmm.
Because we explained to them that, look, we cannot do increments for you. Because in the junior people, we have to do higher increments.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys at the senior level have a lot of ESOP, etc.
Yeah.
So, and nobody likes that. Trust me, nobody likes that. Everybody came to me and said, hey, listen, can't we have, why would we have no increments? Just because everybody wants money, everybody likes money.
Yeah.
But at some level, they have to have the ability to understand the company's concerns. That at the junior level, there is a lot of, people at the 10, 15, 20 lakh level. There's a lot of inflation in that zone. And we have to support that while not making our overall costs go up.
Mm-hmm.
And at the senior level, we have a lot of, other benefits like ESOP, etc. People have made a lot of money. So, when we reach out, we have our conversations, but it's a fair conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I think fairness, transparency, and a lot of authenticity is what I'm hearing. And to know your natural leadership style is just wonderful. I think just a quick extension there, Yashish, a lot of founders talk about culture, right? And I think for you, it's been an authentic extension of yourself. But if you had to think about, some of the things that you've been deliberate about, right? Things that have carried forward a strong culture towards thousands of employees, I think if you could point out one of those things, I think that'd be super helpful, especially as young founders go on to build companies for decades, because it's easy to, I think, forget about culture in the short run, but I think it impacts you hugely in the long run. So would love to hear your views there.
So I think, first of all, culture is the people. So you cannot, in my opinion, create culture. So you cannot one day write a note and say, okay, from tomorrow, this will be my culture.
Right.
You can do that. You can pretend to do that. So we've never done that. We've never kind of, we just pondered over, okay, what does it look like our culture is? Because that, you're right, it's a reflection of us. And I think people have told me, like, my family has told me since I was young, that I have the ability to think about other people, not just myself. And this comes in many ways, right? So my grandmother used to tell me when I was a kid, as I was growing up, that, beta, if you see any old lady, just think it is me. Right? That's the kind of thing, right? Because why not? She's like, all people are also somebody's children. They're like when I see younger people who are 20 years old, etc., I usually say, yeah, you're like my children. Like, you're not my children, but you are. I would treat you the same way as I would have somebody treat my children, right? I think that empathy is very high. And I think that eventually becomes our culture. We hire where we see people not having empathy, where we see them too oriented to themselves alone. we just back off quite early. And when I say quite early, sometimes we back off without hiring them. Usually when we end up hiring them, if that's happened, it can last us 1.5, 2 years because we cannot say things very easily. We can't just tell them, look, you're too selfish.
Yeah.
But eventually being selfish is the primary reason why people eventually are unable to carry on at PolicyBazaar. So yes, we've become crystal clear about what our culture is. And to some level, I think the key word is selflessness. And I don't mean selflessness does not mean you're not selfish. It just means once in a while, you can also think about, put other people's interests ahead of yours, once in a while. Because there will always be conflicts, right? It would be spending time with your family or spending time with work. And my son recently said it, because there were a lot of things I'm doing these days which don't make financial or logical sense to my family, right? And I have done that in the last 10, 15 years also. And my son and my daughter were talking, and my son said it, and I took it as a huge compliment. He said, Diya, what you have to understand is we are not Papa's only family. Even his company is like his family. So he will do things which are not always in our interest. That doesn't mean my family is not my family, right? So I'll also do things in my family's interest. But I have that crystal clarity to be able to see those differences and say, okay, this is my benefit. This is the company's benefit. I have to balance it. I can't go totally in one direction, right? And I think that for every employee in PolicyBazaar is eventually a must-have. Otherwise, I promise you, their time at PolicyBazaar will not be a happy time.
Yeah.
And eventually they'll move out at some point, maybe 2-3 years down the line. We usually will not force people, but at some point they will not find this their normal place.
Got it. No, I think again that's super nice to hear, because it talks about very fundamental traits, very fundamental human emotions that are important, empathy and selflessness. But it's great how you've inbuilt that in the culture of the company and what that can do to the success of one. So I think wonderful to hear that. I have one last question in terms of company building, post which I'd love to move on to a couple of personal questions. But I think they say, and this is a very common quote these days, that it's never been easier to start a company, but it's never been difficult to scale one. And for somebody who's built a company over 13, 14 odd years, you've definitely seen a lot of 0 to 1, as well as seen a lot of scale now. For all those entrepreneurs listening who are scaling their companies, what would you like to share in terms of crucial learnings in just scale times of a company?
See, I would say scaling or building any business has always been hard. It can't be easy, right? If it was that easy to make profits out of thin air, then anybody would just do it. Right. Now, a few steps in the process have become too easy. And there's no doubt about that. That's because of the opportunity we are sitting on as India. As I said, that opportunity of creating 10% of the globe's GDP is huge. And because of that opportunity, a lot of people are very keen to get involved. So they're willing to support anyone and anything. Now it comes to our choice. That opportunity can be used to build something great. That opportunity can be used to have fun. Basically, as Sarabir, who's my friend and CEO of our company also, he says it very well. He says the world is giving you a long rope. You can either build a stairway to heaven and climb on it, or you can hang yourself. It's your choice, right? Some people will choose to hang themselves because the long rope has been given to them. So I think it's really that simple. I don't think it is more complicated than that.
Got it. No, I think that's interesting. Love that anecdote. It's what you make out of it. But no, I think crucial to know what this journey entails and the challenges it has. And so I think, even with everything that's been smooth and bumpy, is there any, crucial learnings in terms of challenges or what that does to an entrepreneur, especially considering that you've had a lot of, otherwise training, which is very ruthless in nature for Iron Man and other things that I want to chat about further. But any cues in terms of challenges, Yashish, and what that has done to shape
I
your
think
personality?
it's all about just staying real, staying true. I was just having a conversation with our CEO right now, and we have built this great business in the point of sales presence, and we were talking about that and how we want to transform that over the next. It's just about staying real. Sometimes we all get carried away a little bit. There is this saying, the devil comes for you at your highest point. I think the nicer people are able to spot it. I don't say more successful people. Huh? I've never seen success as important. I've seen being nice as important. Being nice and honest is very important. So I think the nice and honest people are able to spot it. And they say, hey, look, that's the evil coming for me. So can I avoid it?
Yeah.
And I think that recognition in real time is very important. And, then having the honesty of admitting it in front of everyone and making that change rapidly. What is the evil we are talking about? The evil is the long rope.
Yeah.
Right? So just because a long rope has come to you, you shouldn't start getting very excited because, as we are speaking, but if you notice, I have stopped speaking to the media. For the last 6 months, I've stopped speaking to them.
Yeah.
There's a reason in that. The reason is they're only interested in valuation. They're only interested in how much money you've raised.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to talk about the business per se. And it's with everything.
Yeah.
Today, so-and-so's value went up so much. Today, so-and-so's value went down so much. So-and-so has become a unicorn. So-and-so has raised $500 million. So-and-so has raised $250 million. Arey Baba, kar kya rahe hain?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's okay for their TRPs, but I don't want to get engaged in that nonsense.
Yeah.
So I just stopped dealing with one and all. So I don't deal with media at all now. Right.
Got it.
As in mainstream media.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we have to recognize that evil and step away from it.
Absolutely.
Right. I think the celebration of we've got 100 unicorns. It's a nonsensical celebration. We have to recognize that. If we don't recognize it, we will start getting excited by the wrong things.
Yeah.
It is like 100 people have got a long rope. But are they really building a stairway to heaven? Or are they planning to hang themselves?
Yeah, that's the real question.
I think that is the real question. If they really plan to build a stairway to heaven, India is the best opportunity and they will.
Absolutely.
And how do you identify the difference? The difference is when you start pretending. If you start telling people you're building a stairway, but actually you're not, then the rope is just lying there.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess somewhere we have to self-introspect quite a bit.
Absolutely. I think that's a lot of self-awareness there. And I think one of the key traits that makes any entrepreneur successful or nice rather, as you mentioned, but love
the amazing thing is as we and Sarabbir have known each other for almost 30 years now, actually more than that. I'm very passionate about what I say. And I say it with a lot of passion, but all I do is I have to say the same thing he says in 2 words, in 100 words.
Yeah.
But in terms of thought process, we are exactly the same.
Got it.
So, but he's just very precise in saying it. Like, I'll make this huge story about, because that's how I understand it. I really need to understand things. He'll just say, the world's giving you a long rope, hang yourself or build a stairway to heaven. That's it. And he'll stop. But he's saying the same thing.
Got it. No, I think some people have a thing with brevity and they can just like things in perspective very concisely. I don't think I'm one of them either. So that's a good trait to have similar to you.
Yeah, some people like to really understand it a little more and kind of make it more clear to others. I get influenced by him a lot. I went to his desk one day about 8-10 years ago and it was written, it's always good to have a strategy, but every once in a while, we should check the results.
Yeah, no, super interesting. But no, I think Yashish, this has been absolutely wonderful. I mean, to understand how the core learnings of building Policy Bazaar and how that shaped you has been phenomenal. But coming to a couple of last questions, this is a series of similar questions I ask each guest depending upon their personality. But one of the lesser known facts about Policy Bazaar is that you built Policy Bazaar as in a very dual environment where your family was in London and you used to keep traveling, if I'm not wrong, to build Policy Bazaar. Talk to us about what it means to be as selfless as that and as enduring as that, what that did to shape your personality, and maybe just some of these choices that entrepreneurs have to make over a period of time, which perhaps go unnoticed in building the company, but what it does to a person is really important to echo. So would love to hear from you on this.
See, I'll share one thing with you. My dad was in the army, and we come from an army family. Everybody in my family has been in the army, the navy, the air force, etc. I'm the only one who's so-called civilian.
Yeah,
I've spent more time with my family than my dad spent with us. I just think because I'm running Policy, Bazaar gets spoken about a lot more. So for me, it's okay. But at the same time, there was sacrifice in it. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. Right. And I know when I would leave London, my daughter is not very good at displaying emotions, but my son used to cry every time. Every time he would come running to the bus stand, and he would make a big hoo-ha about everything, and it used to make me cry because I did not want to leave him, right? And every time I would come back, I still remember my daughter used to keep hopping on her feet, so I could see how happy she was. So she was, and every time I would leave, she would never display it, but she would turn around, and if I made her turn back, she would have tears in her eyes as well. So it was a big sacrifice for the family. Remember, they were just 3 and 5 years old when I left, and they would not see me for like months, right? I think the only thing that did to me is I did not take Policy Bazaar lightly. So for me, after that sacrifice level, I think losing was not an option. If you sacrifice that much, you don't just go back and say, hey, you know what? So you become a little more determined to win. If you are, because you count your sacrifices and you say those cannot be done for waste. Yeah. Right. And it's not just my sacrifices, and I'm very clear, whatever equity or wealth I've built is and they were equal participants in this. Yeah. Because they also sacrifice. So my son is very clear. He tells me very, very clearly that, look, you're giving me nothing. I own this. Yeah. And because I have sacrificed. And he's right. He's absolutely right. My daughter and wife just don't say it. So I think eventually they are also people, and one has to be fair to them also. You cannot be unfair to anyone if you're a fair person. So I guess, that's, but yeah, the sacrifice is for real. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. No, I think it goes to show what entrepreneurs do beyond building the company. There are a lot of choices that go behind it. And it's wonderful to have that echoed. Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing that, Yashish. I think for the second last question, and one of the more interesting facts about you as you build Policy Bazaar is the fact that, you do this Ironman race, if I'm not wrong, which requires a lot of great endurance, a lot of training, and a lot of just a personal strength, I'd say, right? Both emotionally and physically. Talk to us about what these avenues mean for you, right? You've been able to express yourself beyond Policy Bazaar in a positive manner. What has that done to you as an individual? What the Ironman means, and if you have any other interests that you'd like to share with us, and what that means for an entrepreneur, more importantly.
No, I think the reason the Ironman journey happened is partly because the family wasn't there all the time, and partly because the family was. because I was not a very good swimmer. I became a swimmer because of my children, because they are both swimmers. So I used to go training with them and I became good at that. But I would have never had the time if I would have kept doing my running, right? I would have kept doing my 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers of running, but I would never have the time to spend hours training. See, the amazing thing about work is work genuinely starts at around 9 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock. Sometimes I'm in office at 9:30 and the office is still empty, right? Since I was a child, have always woken up at 4:35. It's not something I started doing when I'm older. It's just something I've done all my life, right? So I have that 3-4 hours in the morning, which, you know, I have the ability to spend on sort of training, etc. And it's spent well. So I could be doing 2-3 hours of, you know, different activities before office. And those were shorter earlier, because if you drop kids to school and all that stuff, I didn't have all of that, right? If you really think about it. So when I was in the UK, I'd probably go for a run in the morning, come back and then drop kids to school and then go to my office and, you know, all that stuff, but then take a whatever. So I think you have multiple pillars, you know, in your life, and making sure they stay balanced is quite important. But this, you know, obviously helps me. The fitness part really helps me. And it also, I don't say it inspires the company too much, because I don't have too many fitness people in our company. You know, I try to. Once we tried to take about 10-20 people to a gym, I think they lasted 3-4 days. After that, they just went back. So I realized I cannot, and I don't like to influence people beyond a certain level, because eventually it's their life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it helps me stay high energy. I have never taken a day off work because I was sick or anything, ever. Like, since I was 8 years old, I've never. So remember, I have 100% attendance in all my classes, all along school, college, everything. It helps you a lot. You know, it helps you a lot at work. That 100% attendance is a very big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
no, I think that's super to hear. I can only imagine the endurance, the discipline, the perseverance that it shapes you into becoming. And it's just awesome to know that. I think this has been fabulous, Yashish, and I've learned so much. As we end this conversation, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what this journey has meant to you, especially since you've now reached the epitome of what a founder dreams, right? Everybody in some shape or form, when starting a company, thinks of someday taking their company public and listing it and having a larger shareholder base, taking it to the masses. You've now achieved that with PolicyBazaar, but as you've said, it's only the beginning of another journey. So if you can talk to us about what this has meant in conclusion, maybe share a couple of, brief learnings, how it's shaped you, and what's going to follow as we see the next leg of your journey with more such amazing things to happen. I think that would sum up a beautiful conversation.
Jivraj, I think people are what they are. I have always believed no amount of achievement can ever give people happiness. Any achievement can only make you happy for a few days, a few weeks, a few months. After that, you will look upon that as granted. And I think the impact we have to make is only starting. And I genuinely mean that, not for any other reason, because I'm not even 50 yet. My father is 85, he's still running his business after retirement from the army, right? And his business is multifold. It's in transportation, it's in farming, it's in some retail stores, etc. But he's still running it just as actively as he was 50. So I do not see myself sort of closing down, maybe till I'm actually, yes, he was a commander in the Indian Army and he was a very fit guy and all. But I think at his age, I am fitter. So at when he was 50 and I'm 50, if I was to compare the two of us, I think I'm fitter. So I think I'll go a very, very long way. I am certainly, I think, From my work journey, I would think I'm at about 25% to 35% of the way on my work journey. So I think, a lot has to be done yet, and I will keep doing it. Uh, I think I hope I keep achieving good stuff, but that is by the by. I think let's see how things turn out.
Absolutely no. I think I'm sure all of us listening in are only cheerleading from the sidelines and waiting to see all that is going to follow. I think this has been spectacular, Yashish. Your journey and the journey of building Policy Bazaar is a true testament of a lot of perseverance and excellence and a lot of great lessons there. Thank you so much for spending your time here and being your candid self in sharing the insights that have led to what Policy Bazaar is today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure everyone listening in will.
Thank you, Jivraj. You are a very good listener. You've been able to have a very good conversation. So thank you for that. I hope everybody else also enjoys it. All right. Bye
Thank
now.
you.